Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Oh, it is good to be back in Pennsylvania. So let me say, on behalf of myself and the first, second gentleman of the United States, my husband, Doug Emhoff, thank you for the warm welcome.
Let me know. This is interesting because I think this is, just hearing the first, second gentleman, and that's never been the case in the history of the United States. And I know that's going to ring the the right wing, sadly enough, I mean, but this is the state. This is the state of things, really do not seem to understand civil rights for women in the United States of America and the history of civil rights of women in the United States of America. And just want to remind folks that women couldn't vote for a long period of time, just like African Americans. If you were black, you could not vote for a long, couldn't own property. I mean, there are differences, there are intersections there also. You see places where that connects, that idea of not being able to vote connects, that idea of not being able to own property connects. It should connect with a person that is aware of American history. The true patriots are aware of that and should discuss that openly, should be willing to engage it and express their views on it openly. So for me, I'm with it. I want, I believe that women have been discriminated against in the United States of America. Historically, I believe to argue that to any degree would be ridiculous to argue against that point. And so I think it does intersect with others that have felt discrimination in the country. Particularly, it should intersect with Black Americans because we know that better than any other people. And I would ask some Black Americans that support Trump, where do you stand on that specifically? Like, do you think that intersects? Do you want to have that conversation about how it intersects MAGA Republicans, particularly Black MAGA Republicans? I would like to know, but all MAGA Republicans, I would like to know, even if you're Hispanic and you're for MAGA, even if you're an immigrant, second or first generation immigrant, like, second generation, that would be Sean Hannity. Yes, talking to you too. Let me know how you feel about that.
And let me just say, it's good to be here with all of the friends, all of the leaders who are here. I want to thank former Governor Ed Rendell, Senator Bob Casey, who we will re-elect this November, Senator John Fetterman, Mayor Sherelle Parker, and Chairman Jamie Harrison. And it is so good to be here with your incredible Governor, Josh Shapiro.
And let me know what you think about the VP pick, Tim Walz. Let me know what you think about that. Do you think that was the right idea? Do you think it should have been Shapiro? Let me know what you think about that. Personally, I think the more you hear from this guy, the more you're going to understand how he really connects with people and understands people and his approach to things. He's also an educator, right? So his approach to things, I think, is going to be a little more comprehensive when you talk about families, family values, what do all families need, and why for some reason we can't all get down with all families, not just some families, all families. Meaning, I'll give you an example. Meaning that how come all states don't want support for the lunch programs for kids for the poor in their communities in their states? How come all states don't want that? Right? What's up with that? Why is there confusion that all people need that? Why is there confusion that all people need a decent paying job? Why is there confusion about health care? Why is there confusion about reproductive rights? Why is that so confusing? It's because the right describes reproductive rights in a misogynistic manner. They don't really tell you the truth. They don't discuss the real problems in a comprehensive manner in terms of that. So I think the more you hear from Tim Walz, the more you hear his story, and the more you get a chance to know him, I think that's going to be a deep blow, not just for the election to the MAGA Republicans, but also in the future. It's like, do we want change for everybody, or do we just want to fight over a little bit of power when our country has loads of power to share?
And I will say, Josh is a dear, dear friend and an extraordinary leader. He and I have been spending a lot of time together over the years. And I told Josh, look, I am so invested in our friendship in doing this together, because together with Josh Shapiro, we will win Pennsylvania. We will win Pennsylvania. And I thank you, Josh. I thank you. So Philadelphia, I launched my campaign for the President of the United States a mere 2 weeks ago. And it's been a bit of a whirlwind. And just last night, the delegates to the Democratic National Convention finished voting. And so I stand before you today to proudly announce I am now officially the Democratic nominee for President of the United States. And so now we got some work to do. We need to move to the general election and win that. And to all the friends, listen, we also need to level set. We are the underdogs in this race. But we have the momentum, and I know exactly what we are up against. Now, many of you know, before I was elected vice president or elected a United States senator, I was an elected attorney general, and before that, elected district attorney. And before that, I was a courtroom prosecutor. So in those roles, I took on perpetrators of all kinds. Predators who abused women. Fraudsters who scammed consumers. Cheaters who broke the rules for their own gain. So hear me when I say, Donald Trump's type. let me just say, hold on. This campaign, our campaign, is not just a fight against Donald Trump. Our campaign, this campaign, is a fight for the future. It's a fight for the future. In Pennsylvania, we fight for a future with affordable housing, affordable health care, affordable child care, paid leave. We fight for a future where we build a broad-based economy, where every American has the opportunity to own a home, to start a business, and to build wealth. We fight for a future where we bring down prices that are still too high and lower the cost of living for America's families, so that they have a chance not just to get by, but to get ahead. We fight for a future where we defend our most fundamental freedoms: the freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride. And the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own, not having her government tell her what to do. So here's the thing. Since the day that I announced my candidacy, I set out to find a partner who can help build this brighter future. A leader who will help unite our nation and move us forward. A fighter for the middle class. A patriot who believes, as I do, in the extraordinary promise of America. A promise of freedom, opportunity, and justice, not just for some, but for all. So, Pennsylvania, I'm here today because I found such a leader. Governor Tim Walz of the great state of Minnesota. To those who know him best, Tim is more than a governor. To his wife, Gwen, he is a husband. To his kids, Hope and Gus, he is a dad. To his fellow veterans, he is Sergeant Major Walz.
You know, and that's what I mean. Like, this guy is a very well-rounded individual, you know, private life and also public life. You know, educator, also military, ex-military, right? And there's more, you know.
To the people of southern Minnesota, for 12 years, he was congressman. To his former high school students, he was Mr. Walz. And to his former high school football players, he was Coach. Coach.
I mean, can you imagine Trump out there on the football field? Can you imagine Trump teaching football? That's a serious discipline. Can you imagine that? But this guy did it. This guy did it.
And in 91 days, the nation will know Coach Walz by another name, Vice President of the United States. So America, for some folks, they're just getting to know Coach Walz's story. And I'll tell you, he is the proud product of a middle-class family in rural Nebraska. He is a veteran who served our nation in uniform for more than 2 decades as a member of the Army National Guard, and he went to college on the GI Bill. He is someone who, long before he entered politics, worked as a teacher. When Coach Walz and his wife Gwen moved from his native Nebraska to Minnesota nearly 30 years ago, they both took jobs at the local high school. Coach Walz taught social studies, Gwen taught English. After school, Tim was the linebackers coach for the football team. Where I've heard the stories about he had.
You know what? Imagine again. Can you imagine Trump doing this? Can you imagine Trump knowing this much detail about his own Vice P? And check it out. Did he introduce him so graciously? You see, I mean, Kamala's going in for real. I mean, in real time, as a politician should, as a civil servant should be able to do.
Had a knack for using the game of football to teach life lessons. He saw the potential in kids who sometimes didn't even see it in themselves. Under those Friday night lights, Coach Walz motivated his players to believe they could achieve anything. And together, they defied the odds, hear this out, going from a winless record to the school's first ever state championship. And I'll say and I'll add, Tim wasn't only a role model on the football field. Around that same time, Coach Walz was approached by a student in his social studies class. The young man was one of the first openly gay students at the school and was hoping to start a gay-straight alliance. At a time when acceptance was difficult to find for LGBTQ students, Tim knew the signal that it would send to have a football coach get involved. to be the group's faculty advisor. And as students have said, he made the school a safe place for everybody. In the high school yearbook, the students voted Coach Walz the, quote, most inspiring faculty member. And as I think everyone here can see, Tim Walz was the kind of teacher and mentor that every child in America dreams of having, and that every kid deserves. The kind of coach, because he's the kind of person who makes people feel like they belong and then inspires them to dream big. And that's the kind of vice president he will be.
Now, it's almost certain that this is where the right will, be triggered, often. The right often gets triggered when they hear that. And I'm just saying, it's worth it's worth a thought to wonder, is that like homophobia, the feelings, or is that the understanding of policy and how it really works on these issues? I mean, I'm sure the fact that she spoke about this, how many minutes is this into it? It's 18 minutes. You could say it's probably like 15 minutes in, right? And but that's still appropriate because Donald Trump speaks for 90 minutes. So, but it's almost certain that the right is going to be triggered by that. The fact that she's talking about LGBT so early, and then in conjunction with Tim Walz, it's almost certain the right is going to be triggered by that. But I would say even the right should focus on the policy and the practical implementation of these things. And also the law, federal law and state law, because there is a difference. You see, there's a total difference. So a lot of times people tend to confuse state law or a state legislator with a federal legislator or a federal rep in the House or the Senate, right? So it's important to do that because there's a lot of detail in some of this stuff. And it's the same for other people's rights. Even if you don't get triggered, look at the detail. Always look at the detail of the policies and don't just go for the superficial description of them all the time, but in any case, let's see.
And that's the kind of vice president America deserves. So it was Coach Walz's students who actually helped him decide to run for office. And he served 12 years in Congress, representing a purple district as he reached across the aisle to get things done. He was the highest ranking enlisted man to ever serve in the United States Congress. And the top Democrat on the Veterans Committee. And he was known as one of Capitol Hill's best marksmen, winning a bipartisan sharpshooting contest year after year. In Washington, Tim worked to raise the minimum wage, to protect the freedom of workers to join a union, and he cast one of the critical votes to pass the Affordable Care Act. Which, of course, gave health insurance to tens of millions of Americans. I'm going to tell you, when we win, Tim and I will continue to make the Affordable Care Act even stronger. We will win. Now, let's talk about what we're dealing with on the other side. So on that.
All right, it's about to get lit right now. Welcome everybody. I'm just checking this out live myself. I haven't seen it yet, so welcome. Come on in.
Last
Thank you for
topic.
tuning
If
in.
Donald Trump gets the chance, he will end the Affordable Care Act and take us back to a time when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. Let's talk about what we're dealing with on the other side.
Yeah, I wanted to hear this again. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I get it straight what they're about to go in on.
So on that last topic, if Donald Trump gets the chance, he will end the Affordable Care Act and take us back to a time when insurance companies had the power to deny people with pre-existing conditions. You remember what that was like?
Yeah, do you remember what that was like? Being denied for pre-existing conditions. That was an epidemic in the healthcare system in the United States. And that went on for long. We talking decades, really open scamming on the healthcare institution regarding the insurance companies and their denials of people making claims that were actually sick. They paid monthly fees for some people for decades too themselves. It's crazy.
Children with
Remember?
asthma, breast cancer survivors, grandparents with diabetes. Well, Governor Walz and I will not let that happen. Because we believe health care should be a right and not just a privilege for those who can afford it. As governor, Tim has continued to fight for working families. He secured paid leave for workers in Minnesota.
Yeah, it's just buffering, y'all. Sorry about that.
And he refused as governor to allow any student in their public schools to go hungry. So he made school breakfast and lunch free for every child.
Now, it's a simple question. Do you want lunch free for every single child? Do you need that? Do you think that would benefit your pockets? Do you think that would make the cost of living better for you? I mean, and this is the thing. When I vote, I don't just focus on what I don't like. I focus on what I like for me. And I go for the package that guarantees me the things that I need. And if some of those things benefit somebody else, hey, I'm cool with that too. So what I mean directly is this. I'm a heterosexual man, right? And I have children. I'm a single father. I have children to raise also, right? So I want these small things called social democratic values to be inside of my party politics. So if somebody else finds something different that works for them, then hey, grab that too. Or if we can all get along, even people I disagree with, if we could all get along with the basic things that we all need, that's what I'm for, because I believe the cream rises anyway. Even if you just make the level playing field fair, the cream will rise from that. So I'm not into the anti-policy stuff that the naysayer party. They don't come with policy for the taxpayers. Taxpayers deserve more for what they pay, period. More security and more benefits back. The United States is the richest country on earth. It has been for a very long time and the most powerful one. And these kind of basic things, they can't even be things that we argue over. Healthcare, we can be in no doubt about that. We can be in war abroad and get these social benefits at the same time. There's no excuse. Do your research, stop making your excuses, and get down to understanding that you have rights, you pay taxes, you pay the same taxes other people pay in other NATO nations, except you get less back for it. Period. Let's get on with it. Let's wake up. Let's advance.
And Tim Walz and I, we agree about many things, including when our middle class is strong, America is strong. And strengthening the middle class will be my defining goal as I am President of the United States. So Pennsylvania, ours is a fight for the future of the middle class, and it is a fight for freedom.
And what demographic is the middle class? What are the groups that fall in the middle class area, right? Those are groups of all types of people. That's a broad grouping right there, the middle class. That's full of white folk, black folk, Asians, natives. I mean, that's the biggest demographic. That's Muslims, Christians, Jews, non-religious folk. There's a lot of people. There's straight, there's gay, there's loads of people in that demographic. And many of them are ex-military, right? Many of them are teachers. Many of them are just people you see every day working everyday jobs in your grocery stores, right? And you're just in your everyday life, driving the buses, right? Driving the metro trains, right? Picking up the trash, right? And so that's a huge demographic. So I think when you vote, you need to focus on that. Understand your own demographic first, and understand where your strong points are, where you get the most freedom and the most opportunity through.
In this moment, we are witnessing a full-on attack against hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. Take reproductive freedom. Now think about this. Donald Trump said he wants to punish women. And as a result of his actions, today in America, 1 out of 3 women live in a state with a Trump abortion ban. 1 out of 3. Some of these bans go back to the 1800s, even before women had a right to vote. Think about that. Well, Tim and I have a message for Trump and others who want to turn back the clock on our fundamental freedoms. We're not going back. And so let me say about Tim Walz, he has shown up to stand against these attacks long before he stood on the stage with me. After Roe was overturned, he was the first governor in the country to sign a new law that enshrined reproductive freedom as a fundamental right.
Look, y'all, Kamala Harris is 20 minutes in her introduction of, Tim Walz. 20 minutes. She's been breaking down who this guy is. And think about Trump. He will spend 90 minutes talking about irrelevant shit and boasting his own ego. 90 minutes. This woman has spent 20 minutes breaking down Tim Walz's career as an introduction to her vice P pick. Just think about that, How many minutes do you think Donald Trump spent? How many minutes do you think Donald Trump spent breaking down to you uh, J.D. Vance's background and experience. How many minutes? You think it was 2 seconds, 3 seconds, 4 seconds? How much of that 90 minutes speech do you think he dedicated to Tim Walz?
And with Tim Walz by my side when I am president of...
I'm sorry, I meant J.D. Vance. How many seconds do you think Trump spent breaking down who J.D. Vance was in his speech?
The United States, and we win majorities in the United States Congress, we will pass a bill to restore reproductive freedom, and I will proudly sign it into law. Tim Walz has also defended the sacred freedom to vote. As governor, he signed the most significant expansion of voting rights in Minnesota in over 50 years. And with Governor Walz's help, when I am president, we are going to finally pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Freedom to Vote Act. We're going to get it done. So Tim is a hunter and a gun owner who believes, as the majority of gun owners do, that we need reasonable gun safety laws in America. So as governor, he expanded background checks and increased penalties for illegal firearm sales. And together, when we win in November, we are finally going to pass universal background checks, red flag laws, and an assault weapons ban. Through his work, Tim, the way I think about it, he really does shine a light on a brighter future that we can build together. In his state, he has been a model chief executive, and with his experience, I'm telling you, Tim Walz will be ready on day one. In fact, when you compare his resume shall we, to Trump's running mate, well, some might say it's like a matchup between the varsity team and the JV squad.
Oh, hell yeah. And she's being nice about it,
So, Pennsylvania, ultimately in this election, we each face a question. What kind of country do we want to live in? A country of freedom, compassion, and rule of law, or a country of chaos, fear, and hate?
I can answer for Maga, even though I don't support their platform, but for them, it's fear and hate. They want to run on that one. And it's clear.
And here's the beauty of our democracy. We each have the power to answer that question. We each have the power to answer that question. The power is with the people. country. And I believe it is the highest form of patriotism to fight for the ideals of our country. That is how we preserve the promise of America. And after all, you know, the promise of America is what makes it possible for two middle-class kids, one a daughter of Oakland, California, who was raised by a working mother, the other a son of the Nebraska plains who grew up working on a farm. It's the promise of America, because only in America is it possible for them together to make it all the way to the White House. Only in America.
And you know something? That is something Americans need to think about right there, because look, common politics and these kind of things, just like there's been other countries that have had women presidents or parliament leaders, right? The United States hasn't had that, but in that case, it's the same thing. There's a lot of things the United States has that you can't take for granted. Maybe everybody else doesn't have that. So in the US, you got to recognize that you can come from those backgrounds, simple backgrounds. You may not agree, it may not be your culture, it may not be your exact family way, but what you have, you might want to think about is, what do you have in common? Is it middle class background? Are you simple folk? And in America, simple, basic folk can become the president, or it should be that way. This will be the first woman, though. See, the gender politics comes into it also, the rights of women. Like, we're talking about the first time, too. So even though it's very fair and more fair in some ways, it's not completely fair for everybody. And we got to make it that way. You got to make it that way.
Only in
If you want it that way for yourself. If you want it fair for yourself, you have to be able and be willing to vote for it to be fair for others too.
America.
For everybody.
Right. That's right. And so Coach Walz and I may hail from different corners of our great country, but our values are the same. And we both believe in lifting people up, not knocking them down. He and I, we both know the vast majority of people in our country have so much more in common than what separates them. When we look at folks, we see in our fellow Americans neighbors, not enemies. Not enemies. And so my promise to you is this. Our campaign will reach out to everyone, from red states to blue states, from the heartland to the coast, in rural, urban, suburban, and tribal communities. We are running a campaign on behalf of all Americans. And when elected, we will govern on behalf of all Americans. And so, with Tim Walz by my side, and with all of you at our side, let us fight for the...
You know something? I'm sorry, I got to say this. Right now, by what she has said in the last 38 minutes that's been comprehensive and detailed. It's very, she's letting you know this is middle class people. She don't care what type. It's all types of middle class people. If you're in the middle class and you need help and you need support and you think you're not getting enough for your taxes, then she's saying, I'm the candidate for you and for your rights, for your right to freedom, the right to be the person you are, right? After she said this, all of this stuff she introduced, this is an introduction to Tim Walz, by the way. All of this stuff, and it's great. I agree with her 100%. I'm for her policy. Right now, all the Republicans heard for that 33 minutes, they got to this point, and for them, all they heard is, you're about to take away my assault weapon. I'm telling you, that's what they're saying.
Promise of our future. And with that, I ask Pennsylvania, are you ready to make your voices heard? Do we believe in freedom? Do we believe in opportunity? Do we believe in the promise of America? And are we ready to fight for it? And when we fight, we win! And now, welcome the next Vice President of the United States, Tim Walz.
Wow. Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Madam Vice President, for the trust you put in me, but maybe more so, thank you for bringing back the joy. I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you and Doug, this incredible journey. And Pennsylvania, I know you know this, but my God, what a treasure you have in Josh Shapiro. Holy hell, can this guy bring the fire? He can bring the fire. This is a visionary leader. Also, I have to tell you, everybody in America knows when you need a bridge fixed, call that guy. And I think sometimes we forget, and you see people a little one-dimensional, but seeing a guy who cares so deeply about his family, a man with compassion, vision, and I'll have to tell you this, I know this from experience, there is no one you would rather go to a Springsteen concert in Jersey with than him. Than that guy. Roots. And I can't wait for all of you and America to get to know my incredible wife, Gwen, a 29-year public school educator. Don't ever underestimate teachers. And our two beautiful kids, Hope.
Because Donald Trump is definitely not a teacher
And Goss.
at all.
I couldn't be prouder to be on this ticket and to help Vice President Harris become what we all know is very, very good for us to think about. Next President of the United States of America. From her first day as a prosecutor, as a district attorney, Attorney General of the great state of California, a United States Senator, and Vice President of the United States, Vice President Harris has fought on the side of the American people.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but check this out. People need to not let MAGA people or people on the net or people in general do not be spooks. Like Kamala Harris has earned every bit of her, her opportunities. She's earned all of them. MAGA people have put out, and Trump and his campaign, with a little help from the disinformation troll system, right? They put out a huge campaign over the internet. And their campaign is to say that Kamala Harris didn't earn it, right? This DEI thing. But the truth is that all you have to do is just Google Kamala Harris' record for 20 years. For over 20 years, what is it? Since 2002, Kamala Harris, every post job position that she's had to run for it and get the votes. If she didn't get more votes than her opponent, she wouldn't have gotten any of those opportunities. At every step, it came down to a vote, and they don't care what your background is. You have to be very sure about that and clear about that. So there's been a huge campaign to mask her as another person. But the worst crime you could do, a middle class person could do to themselves, is to and incorrectly misjudge another middle class person's record and their work record. Think about how backwards that is. You could work for everything that you got, and then someone can turn it around and say, oh, you just got that because you're black, or you just got that because of and think about this. When she says that she's black, when she says that she's Indian, what do? They come down on her for that. But the truth of the matter is that then when she earns something for herself for 20 something years, over 20 years, then they say, no, you only did it because you're black. So no matter which way she goes, they will always try to judge her bad. And right now they're judging her two totally opposite polling systems, two different totally opposite judge rules system. They're being totally unfair about this. So you don't have to think about anything else. All you have to do when you think about Kamala Harris, think about, do you as a person want to be treated fairly or not? Because they have completely and utterly treated this woman. I'm so glad she almost doesn't even respond to this stuff, because it's so dumb. Any person that researches it will know it's a lie. But that's how powerful the disinformation campaigns on the internet have been regarding politics. That's why they call it election interference. And no doubt about it, if you're on social media, if you're on YouTube, any of those things, it's heavily filled right now with trolling systems and spreading disinformation about this election. It's called election interference, y'all.
She took on the predators. She took on the fraudsters. She took down the transnational gangs. She stood up against powerful corporate interests, and she never hesitated to reach across the aisle if it meant improving people's lives. And I want all of you to hold this, and don't ever underestimate the power of this. She does it all with a sense of joy.
That's when I smack the shit out you. I smack the shit out. That's when
Commitment to people.
She definitely does it with joy, y'all. What's up?
I was born in West Point, Nebraska. I lived in Butte, a small town of 400, where community was a way of life. Growing up, I spent the summers working on the family farm. My mom and dad taught us, show generosity towards your neighbors and work for a common good. My dad served in the Army during the Korean War. And with his encouragement, at 17, I joined the Army National Guard. For 24 years, I proudly wore the uniform of this nation. The National Guard gave me purpose It gave me the strength of a shared commitment to something greater than ourselves. And just as it did for my dad and millions of others, the GI Bill gave me a shot at a college education. My dad was a teacher. My brothers and sisters and I followed in their footsteps.
And this is an interesting thing right here, the GI Bill, because that doesn't. Some people will interpret that as like, okay, maybe in a well, in any case, but check this. He did join the military with the idea in his mind that he could get access to education, the GI Bill, and other benefits, right? But think about some of the benefits that come along with that. Education, access to education is one of it. But a political issue in the US right now is the education system, the cost of the education system, right? And the how, how it's managed, the education systems, right? Um, should you have to pay so much for education in the United States of America? Should you have to pay it all? Right. And so this is a situation where you have a guy who joined and served in the military who's telling you that one of the things on his mind was the GI Bill, access to certain things like education. Right. So I'm asking you, fellow American, do you want to pay for education? Do you think you should have to join the military to get access to education? But if you listen to this guy's policy, because he had that experience, he thinks that people should have more access than just having to join the military. It's nothing wrong with joining the military, but some of these things should be just available for, accessible for many more people. But kudos to him. I really like the fact that Kamala Harris picked this guy. She didn't go with just what the quote unquote numbers look like. She went with a comprehensive planning, detail orientated planning that is inclusive to everybody, including poor white people, poor black people, poor Hispanics, poor everybody, right? And or middle class, everybody, not just the poor, but she's saying mainly middle class. But if you look at Dem's policy, the middle class is in closer proximity to the poor too, so it helps them also, a lot of the policies.
The four of us married teachers. What we do. For nearly 20 years, I had the privilege of teaching high school social studies and coaching football. Including winning that state championship. Thank you. Don't ever close the yearbook. Don't ever. But it was my students. They encouraged me to run for office. They saw in me what I was hoping to instill in them, a commitment of common good, a belief that one person can make a difference. So in 2006, I took a leap and I ran for Congress. And because high school teachers are super optimistic, I was running in a district that had one Democrat since 1892. Well, my neighbors graced me with an opportunity to represent them in the United States House of Representatives. I'm proud of the work we did there together. I worked across the aisle on veterans issues, on agriculture, and on ways to grow rural economies. I learned the art of compromise without compromising my values.
Listen, y'all, the Democrats, they have two strong, knowledgeable, capable civil servants, which, just real strong backgrounds. I mean, when they're saying right now for the people, look at these persons' individual records for what they are, and you will see that. Because if you want Donald Trump, you think he got experience. Oh my God. Donald Trump and JD Vance, they have nowhere close to any knowledge, understanding, practical understanding, or theoretical understanding or just in their experience. They don't have experience at all. You, if you trust governance to Donald Trump, you think what happened last time was bad? This next time around is going to be way worse if he ever gets close to that. Why? Because he doesn't have any capabilities whatsoever to govern, to make decisions. He doesn't even know what anything is. These Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, in terms of understanding of governance and practical understanding of how the relationship between civil society and the government, right, and society in general, they understand what the job is. They understand how the system works, a system of democracy functions in the United States of America. They understand the job of government, the different branches of government on the federal level, on the local level, right? And how you pass laws to benefit the everyday people, to support everyday people. They understand that apparatus. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, they don't have a clue on any level, anywhere close to what these two individuals have when you really look at their records. Understand it. Take away how they look. Take away how they look. Take away the fact that this is a white guy. Take away the fact that he's a northern white guy. Take away that fact. Take away Kamala Harris's color. Take away her ethnicity, right? And notice how when they talk about Tim Walz, they don't even talk about his ethnicity. He's just white. They don't want to know what kind of white. They don't want to know if he was a Mormon. They don't want to know if he was a Quaker. They don't want to know if he's English. They don't want to know if he's, anything else about his ethnic. Is he Irish? Is he blah, blah, blah? They don't want to know none of that stuff. They're not even caring about it. They don't even care about those nuances. But when it comes to Kamala Harris, they want to know, what is she? Is she ethnic? Is she Indian? Was she all of this other shit? Remove all of those ethnic traits. Remove female and male out of it and look at their record alone. There is no way in hell their record, Donald Trump's record or J.D. Vance's record, it doesn't come an inkling of a percent close. So just understand, if you are focusing too much on the wrong things and you're triggered by the wrong things, how they look, what their gender is, if you're confused about that, their ethnicity, if you're confused about that right now, you are missing the whole goddamn point. Your mind is off in Wonderland. You need to get down to the numbers, to the data, understanding the data of the country you live in, understanding the country you live in as a citizen. If you can't understand that these two records crush Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, then you, my friend, got a long way to go. And your
now, as governor of the great state of Minnesota,
you got not only a long way to go, but you're going to pay for it too.
I bring those experiences to bear in tackling the challenges that are facing our great state. Minnesota's strength comes from our values, our commitment to working together, to seeing past our differences, to always being willing to lend a helping hand. Those are the same values I learned on the family farm and tried to instill in my students. I took it to Congress and to the state capitol, and now Vice President Harris and I are running to take those very values to the White House. Now, Donald Trump sees the world a little differently than us. First of all, he doesn't know the first thing about service. He doesn't have time for it because he's too busy serving himself. Again and again and again, Trump weakens our economy to strengthen his own hand. He mocks our laws. He sows chaos and division. And that's to say nothing of his record as president. He froze in the face of the COVID crisis. He drove our economy into the ground. And make no mistake, violent crime was up under Donald Trump. That's not even counting the crimes he committed. You know, some of us are, some of us in here are old enough to remember. I see you down there. I see those old white guys. Some of us are old enough to remember when it was Republicans who were talking about freedom. It turns out now what they meant was the government should be free to invade your doctor's office. In Minnesota, we respect our neighbors and their personal choices that they make. Even if we wouldn't make the same choice for ourselves, there's a golden rule: mind your own damn business. These guys are after my heart chanting, mind your own damn business. That feels good, so thank you. Look, that includes IVF, and this gets personal for me and my family. When my wife and I decided to have children, we spent years going through infertility treatments. And I remember praying every night for a call for good news. The pit in my stomach when the phone rang, and the agony when we heard that the treatments hadn't worked. So it wasn't by chance that when we welcomed our daughter into the world, we named her Hope. When Vice President and I talk about freedom, we mean the freedom to make your own health care decisions. And for our children to be free to go to school without worrying they'll be shot dead in their classrooms. By the way, as you heard, I was one of the best shots in Congress, but in Minnesota, we believe in the Second Amendment, but we also believe in common sense gun violence laws. Vice President Harris' idea of freedom is a ticket for education to be that ticket to the middle class, not crippling debt. Air that's clean, water that's pure, communities that are safe. A place where we settle our political differences not through violence, but with our votes. And that's what this election's about. What direction will this country go in? He's not going back. Well, Donald Trump would damn sure take us backwards. Let's be clear about that. And don't believe him when he plays dumb. He knows exactly what Project 2025 will do to restrict our freedoms. To rig the economy to help the super rich. If Trump gets a chance to return, he's going to pick up exactly where he left off 4 years ago. Only this time, it will be much, much worse. Raising costs on middle-class family. He will repeal the Affordable Care Act, no doubt about it. He'll gut Social Security and Medicare. And when somebody tells you are, they believe him. He said he'd ban abortion across this country, and he'll do it, whether or not Congress is there or not. Donald Trump's not fighting for you or your family. He never sat at that kitchen table like the one I grew up at, wondering how we were going to pay the bills. He sat at his country club up in Mar-a-Lago, wondering how he can cut taxes for his rich friends. And I got to tell you, his running mate shares his dangerous and backward agenda for this country. J.D. Vance literally wrote the foreword for the architect of the Project 2025 agenda. Like all regular people I grew up with in the heartland, J.D. studied at Yale, had his career funded by Silicon Valley billionaires, and then wrote a bestseller trashing that community. Come on! That's not what middle America is. And I got to tell you, I can't wait to debate the guy.
J.D. Vance is going to run from any debate exactly like Donald Trump. Do you see J.D. Vance coming anywhere near this man with a debate? Donald Trump is a coward and J.D. Vance is a coward. And indeed, they should run for the hills. If they ever think about either one of them debating Kamala Harris or Tim Walz, but Tim Walz is, he thinks he's going to debate J.D. Vance. Man, let me tell you, Tim Walz, J.D. Vance is shaking. He's under his blanket right now, with the lights turned off, not wanting to come out and face anybody. Just the fact that you think you want to debate it.
That is, if he's willing to get off the couch and show up. So,
Thank you.
You see what I did there?
Yo, that's exactly what I was saying right there. Thank you. I thought, come on. Thank you.
Look.
He ain't showing up.
I got to tell you, pointing out just an observation of mine that I made. I just have to say it. You know it, you feel it. These guys are creepy, and yes, just weird as hell. That's what you see. That's what you see. So you know what's out there, so say it with me. We aren't going back. We aren't going back. We are not going back. So we got 91 days. My God, that's easy.
2 seconds. 2 seconds. I got to let it buffer, y'all. Sorry about that. I can see the internet's a little acting up.
We'll sleep when we're dead. Over those next 91 days and every day in the White House, I'll have Vice President Harris's back. Every single day. And we'll have yours. You know how this works. We can't do it alone. We need you, each and every one of you. Go over to KamalaHarris.com, get on board, because we need you. Freedom to make our own choices. This leader, this compassionate, careful, joyous leader believes in each and every one of you. My God, you came here tonight to sit at the very top because you love this country and you're not going back. She believes in the opportunity for every single person to join the middle class. She believes in the promise of America. We just got to fight. We just got to fight. Because as soon-to-be President Harris says, when we fight, we win! Thank you, Philadelphia. Thank you, Vice President. God bless America.
All right, there you have it. Now the panel's open. Yeah, the panel's open, so anybody want to hop on that panel. I'm going to go through the local news, or not the local news, I'm sorry. I'm going to go through the different news networks and see what their reactions have been now to this, now that I've seen this. It's interesting. I like this. Number one of the things that I noticed regarding this. Hey, Pumpkin, how you doing?
Hey,
One of the things that I noticed about this particular speech is just analytically, if I just detract from whatever they said and all the their agenda and their policy things, I see 53 minutes. This entire thing took 53 minutes. And in that 53 minutes, you got a lot of perspective. You got a lot to go on. They discuss things in a way to let you know they have a hold on this. They understand what this is. They understand what they're doing. They understand government's role in society. That's ultimately what you want to get out of a speech and get out of candidates when you hear them speak. Now, Donald Trump, he gives 90 minutes speeches and you don't get nothing. You get zero. All you get is you get a couple sparks of hatred here, a couple sparks of I'm gonna kick them all out, a couple sparks of, what else, it's misogyny, misogynistic stuff. I mean, geez, Trump went out racist stuff. You get a little touch of this, a little dash of that. You know what I'm saying? But you don't get any substance. You don't walk away saying this person understands the role of government at all. Even if you're against government, talk about government like you know what the point is in having a government, like you understand how it works. Donald Trump cannot tell you how the government works. He can only tell you what he doesn't like, and he has no understanding outside of just hatred of why he doesn't like something, and he'll use 90 minutes on that. JD Vance is equally as ridiculous. JD Vance, the problem with JD Vance is that he doesn't bring anything to the table. He doesn't offset Trump's weaknesses, which are huge. JD Vance doesn't offset none of them. He doesn't come with any strengths either. So you need strengths. You need a strong president that understands how government works and has values, real democratic social values for the families, value for the middle class. You need that, and you need that in a vice presidential pick also. And you need to hear that from them in a useful amount of time, in a rational amount of time. So pound for pound, what I got out of this hour was everything. Everything pretty much. They cover, with their backgrounds and their experience, they cover the map very, very well, pound for pound. And JD Vance and Donald Trump, I don't know what the hell they're out to do, but it is not anything that has anything to do with understanding what government, how the world works, how a nation works, how a country works, the laws, the legal system, the military, the anything anything. They don't understand how the trash is supposed to be collected on, on Sunday morning. They don't know anything about that, or Monday morning, whatever. They don't know anything about that. But Pumpkin, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Wow,
Okay.
that was good. I didn't hear it from the beginning, but it was a good one. I just
Oh,
came in the
okay.
middle of it. It was
Oh,
good.
okay. So you didn't catch this already, because I'm catching I had to do the replay, and it took me a few hours to touch up some of the audio. I don't know how the audio sounded, but before it was way too low. I couldn't hear it, so I had to edit it myself for
It
this.
it was good. It was good. I caught enough of it. But you know what? I
Mhm.
I know I know that well, I know that Donald Trump wasn't gonna win. But the problem is not gonna be whether they win. It's going to be what happens. Are we gonna have another
Oh,
January
yeah. Are they
6th?
going to run amok?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because
That's
if
the only question. It's not will they win. They can't.
they
It
they're
doesn't. Yeah.
definitely gonna win. She's
You mean?
definitely going to be the first woman
Yeah. Kamala is.
president.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's definitely. But the thing is, if you listen to, I forget the guy's name. His name is Rob. His first name is Robert, if I'm not mistaken. But the guy that was part of the Heritage Foundation, the one
Right.
that resigned, that went about. He said the I'm gonna paraphrase it, but it was something to the effect: the Democrats, we're going to do it. You can do it peacefully, or there's going to be bloodshed, something to that effect. And that's where the problem is going to come in, because they said they already got fake electors who aren't going to certify the election. So we know what that means. That means that Donald Trump knows he's going to lose and is going to say that he won and it was stolen. Now, my opinion on that is, excuse me,
Mhm.
Donald Trump, um, Donald Trump, they will go to the Capitol, supposedly go. But I think this time it will be bloodshed. This is hopefully it won't, but I'm just thinking like a MAGA person, trying to anyway, that they will go and buy I don't know how to say this guy's last name. Is it Walls or Waltz? It's
It's Waltz. Waltz.
like Walls, Walls.
Walz. Waltz.
But it's pronounced Walls, right?
No, it's pronounced Waltz. Waltz.
Wait, I'm gonna mute for a minute.
Yeah, go ahead and mute. Go ahead and mute. I think you know, I agree with that. And I think how I see it is like essentially security. This is something for the security agency in the government, Department of Justice, and the the FBI to wrap their heads around, because the bottom line is that um, if you attack the United States government, then you have to be dealt with. And if you have any plans for insurrection, you have to be dealt with, right? And by any means necessary, essentially. And they have, I think, with this Project 2025 and the what do they call it? The Heritage Society or Heritage Foundation, right?
Heritage
They
Foundation.
Right. They have made a critical error, because they made their statements, they've made it public, they've said that they want to have an insurrection. They talk about it openly. They talk about that almost more than they talk about how they're going to win an election. They talk about what they're going to do more if they don't win, and they're not even saying when. They're saying if for any reason whatsoever anybody comes back saying Kamala Harris and Tim Walz won, we're going to have an insurrection. And that in itself, the FBI already got enough, in the federal government, the Justice Department already has a green light to make sure that
They're
cannot
ready this time.
plan. Exactly. You can't plot on the United States of America. Are you out of your mind?
They're
Like,
gonna call out the National Guard because this guy, the guy Tim Walz, He's national, he's into the National Guard. They're going to be ready. They're not going to get inside this time. I'm afraid it's going to be bloodshed, and it ain't going to be too, yeah, it's going to be nasty at the end. That's where the problem's going to come. That's just me. That's just what, because like you said,
I think they got a lot of perspectives to cover in terms of security. I don't think there's just these MAGA people. I think they have to understand who's supporting these MAGA people, and of course, there's known links. There's a lot of people that would like to support MAGA folks running amok somehow, some way, whether it's through disinformation online, whether it's through disinformation on the ground, whether it's through, foreign operatives hiding within the local population, these MAGA people, and I think they're concerned with that also. And I think that's why they're going to be on guard, because that's really how this game is played. People like to mask themselves within other movements. And MAGA has become one of those places, and the right wing and the Republican Party has become one of those places where foreign agents have masked themselves within the far right movement. You see, and they've done that. They've been dealing with that issue the whole time. But I think this time around, they're going to be on guard for foreign interference, which is political. It's political. It's political interference. You can't interfere with the process of democracy, right? You cannot interfere with that. And they will be looking. Enemies of the United States will be looking to. You see, and I think this time around they're like all over this at this point. So I think the Heritage Foundation, they're local. You can consider them local terrorists. You could
domestic
consider them that.
terrorists, yeah.
And yeah, you could consider it along with some other groups. And just like you have foreign ones, you have national ones. So
Eh,
I think the federal government just needs to, put it, and I'm pretty sure they have different trains of thought on this. Not one train of thought, but they're examining several trains, several possibilities. So, but go ahead. You want to say anything else before I start playing some of the reaction that the the larger
nah,
media
that
sources
that
already
was
did?
it was good to me. From the beginning, my mind was made up whether it was Joe Biden or whatever. My mind was made up that I was going to vote for, Biden Harris. But this this is good. That's going to be the key. That's going to be the bad part. But like you say, the FBI had said that the I think it was Ray, I'm not sure, or the other guy that was before him. But anyway, they said that foreign terrorism wasn't a threat to America. It was domestic terrorism, homegrown terrorists. So I think it's all going to play out. So, like you say, they got a handle on it. I think they got a handle on it because it'll be different.
Yeah, they
Sadly,
have their full warning. They got their full warning now. So,
so they
and they've been getting those. They've been getting those messages for a minute. But let me cut over now
go
to the.
ahead. Let's see.
Yeah,
Hear the
let's
rest.
see here what this
Hear the
looks
rest.
like. All right, here we go. Let's see here.
Hey, Ed, let's interrupt you really quickly, and you can continue.
A couple of news organizations confirming it, including the AP. Breaking news: Kamala Harris picks Minnesota Governor Tim Walz as running mate as she looks to boost the Democratic ticket in the Midwest.
For our viewers,
I was going to say, to Ed's point, he sounds like, a football coach talking about very progressive issues. He brings to the table a background that is very down to earth and connected with people and their daily lives as a former teacher.
It's an interesting pick. I think ironically enough, people have looked at him as the safe pick. I would disagree. This opens up a number of issues for the Democratic ticket to now defend. But this is, it looks like, according to the Associated Press, and we're still waiting at NBC News to confirm it, but the Associated Press and other news organizations, Ed, have in fact said it's Walz. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a good pick. To be honest, I mean, I think Shapiro would have been as well, but he talks in a way that isn't perceived by Republicans or non-Democrats in general to be looking down on them. He talks in a very engaging, everyday manner, very practical, very common sense. He's a hunter. He shoots. He's got a pretty normal family. He's from a blue-collar background. He's served in the military. I think it's very difficult to paint him as Kamala's equivalent of J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was, as Governor Walz put it, a weird choice who talks in weird ways. Walz is the unweird. So I think it's going to be pretty hard. And I would echo what Jonathan said earlier. The first principle of selecting a running mate is to do no harm. I don't think he's going to do any harm. I don't think this is going to be a 10-day story. Why did Harris pick Walz? I think it's going to be a 3-day story, and it's going to be a united Democratic Party, and he'll be a popular choice. He communicates in a very effective, very unfake way.
Yeah, and to add to Ed's point, as we bring in Claire McCaskill to this conversation, nobody better.
He talks. He communicates in a very effective, very unfake way.
Yes.
Yeah, and to add to Ed's point.
Yeah, you can't stereotype his when he's speaking because of his background. It becomes very difficult to stereotype him because he's going to hit back and prove how nutty you are. I think that's essentially what I get out of Walz. You might try to take a hit on him, but he's going to hit back twice, and it's going to be deep because he's very well-rounded, so we'll see what they do.
As we bring in Claire McCaskill to this conversation, nobody better than Claire. Tim Walz also brings maturity to the ticket without being too old, which I guess people talk about a lot these days, especially on the Trump side, looking as old as he has lately. At the same time, this is a younger ticket with enough wisdom and maturity to bring to the table their ideas and their vision for the country. Claire, your thoughts on Tim Walz?
I think it's a great pick. Listen, he grounds her in a way that really matters, especially for all of the country that is not on the coast. This is not a coastal elite guy. This is not an Ivy Leaguer. This is a guy who says things like, you'd lose your hair too if you supervised a high school lunchroom for 20 years. This is a guy who can give you advice on how to fix your car. This is a guy who has served 25 years in the National Guard and who has served his country admirably. He has been in Congress. He knows the levers of power in government and how to wield them. He's been a governor in a state that, while, yes, Minnesota is blue, but it's not bright blue. I remember a time when Republicans were getting elected statewide in Minnesota. And he does have this way of communicating. I think what really made the difference here is he's joyful when he's on the attack. He almost, does it with a wink and a smile and a sense of humor when he is going after these guys. And that's what Kamala Harris needs. She needs somebody who will keep the lightness in her campaign, who will be a happy warrior. And that is Tim Walz. He is one happy warrior. I think he's a terrific pick.
Yeah, and also adding to that, joyful in his approach, I think you're absolutely right, Claire. He seems to almost have a twinkle in his eye when he's going after people. And let's just put to the table here that we're hearing this from multiple news sources. Apparently the phone call hasn't been made. The actual conversation hasn't been had yet, but this is the choice. Yeah. But it was down to two amazing choices. Yeah. And ultimately, some of these decisions have to be made in terms of who you feel most comfortable with, who you think you can work with, who you think will be the best fit on your team. That's stuff that, can only be made by the candidate herself.
Exactly. Candidate has to make the decision herself. And I will tell you, the candidate that I'm most comfortable with is a candidate that helps me win Pennsylvania in
Okay.
2024. So let us hope, Jonathan Lemire, that those outside of Pittsburgh loves Tim Walz. So talk about
Walz.
Walz.
Yeah, I got it.
Let's talk about how the decision not made.
Okay,
the road
wait a
not
second.
taken.
Yo, I think Pumpkin was asking me about this. Is it Tim Waltz or is it Tim Walls? Let me just go back here a little bit. Let's see here.
Dean,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
stuff that, can only be made by the candidate
Well,
herself.
exactly. Candidate has to make the decision herself. And I will tell you, the candidate that I'm most comfortable with is a candidate that helps me win Pennsylvania
Okay.
in 2024. So let us hope, Jonathan Lemire, that those outside of Pittsburgh loves Tim Walz. So talk about
Walz.
Walz.
Yeah, I got it.
Let's talk about
Okay, so it is
how,
Walz.
the decision not made, the road not taken. Josh Shapiro, a guy that has approval ratings in the 60s in Pennsylvania, the must-win state for both campaigns, and also the one who was considered the front runner for a very long time. But then there was a backlash. And we heard backlash. There was a very public campaign against Josh Shapiro and a really ugly whisper campaign against Josh Shapiro. And it's unfortunately, that's something that is now hanging over this choice.
No question there,
Jonathan.
Joe. Josh Shapiro was considered the governor of Pennsylvania, the heavy favorite going into this process. As we mentioned earlier in the show, he was seen as someone who would run for president had President Biden opted to drop out sooner than he did. And he was perceived to be Vice President Harris's top choice and would have, many people believe, delivered Pennsylvania. But clearly the Harris campaign felt if indeed Tim Walz is the pick. And we should note, we're reporting here that the governor of Minnesota has not yet officially been notified that he is the choice, but there are people around Governor Shapiro who have been told that he is not the choice. So we can sort of put two and two together there as to where this is going at this moment. But there are indeed, this is going to be there will be some second guessing about this choice because of the electoral prize that Pennsylvania is. And we're already seeing from Republicans some attack lines about Governor Walz, most importantly invoking the 2020 riots there, the Black Lives Matter riots after the George Floyd death. We're seeing that. We're seeing that people have already, Governor DeSantis of Florida has already deemed Harris Walz the most liberal ticket in history. But I think there are selling points to this pick as well. He's a former school teacher. He's the National Guardsman. He was in the House. He was governor. He has a very impressive resume. He is the guy who coined weird. That phrase, which Democrats have used so effectively against Trump and Vance and Republicans, that has taken off in the last 10 days or so, is from the mouth of Governor Walz on our air, calling them weird. So she is an effective.
Yeah, it's true. When you look at how people, not the policy, but how people react to policies, how well they understand policy, how understanding they are of the process and how government works and what's the role of government and things like civil rights, human rights. The people, I think there's an intellectual gap between Republicans. Ultimately, I'm talking about the average voter and Democrats. Democrats tend to be just a little bit more stronger with the basics, education, back this kind of stuff, strong on education, Democrats. And, I think that kind of opens up your world differently, the way you view things. It opens up a lot. But Republicans, when they don't know Democratic policy, but when they hear it, when they hear people talking about it, just making simple kind of superficial comments about things that they really shouldn't joke about and they need to understand first before they, make some crazy comment that doesn't make any sense, but could be also interpreted as hateful, or, in that way too. I think there's going to be a problem with the gap. And I think that's what they mean. A lot of times Republican people vote for bad things that are bad for them. Unfortunately, when you're talking about the middle class and lower class Republicans, they vote for bad policy. They don't vote for policy that's good for them. They tend to vote on what they don't want. Number one, guns. They want. Everybody knows that. You want guns. Okay. fine. Then they go for, outside of that, wanting guns, everything else they kind of talk about like they hate it. They want a privatization more so of America because they don't want unions. They don't want fair pay, a fair wage. They don't want you to be able to choose yourself how you live. They don't care. They'll sacrifice how they live. For example, they'll sacrifice a school food program for themselves if it means they can stop someone else from getting something else. Now, both of you might want food programs, liberals and Republicans, but average Republican will vote against it just because they don't want a gay person to have a food program. This is what I'm getting at. So a lot of times they misinterpret, I think MAGA people, they misinterpret Democratic policy and Democratic values. They stereotype it and turn it into something derogatory instead of really understanding that the policies are really pro-human, pro-civil rights.
Fifth communicator, he's a talented politician, no doubt, and they think that will help them in some rural areas, cut down margins of defeat. But we know, because we had Steve Kornacki on yesterday, that wasn't really the case in Minnesota itself. Walz has a libertarian streak. He is someone who I think will be good on the stump as an attack dog in a kindly manner. But there are going to be some who believe that Josh Shapiro should have been the pick.
Yeah, today marks Kamala Harris's first big decision, which she would carry 4 years into the presidency, and it went really well. The decision looks good on substance, and the speech was a home run. There are times where you just need a whiskey. We've all had those times covering these news cycles. But there are other times where you... But there are other times...
Go on. Go ahead.
Long pause. I'm sneaking a drink. But there are other times where the best thing for you is some Gatorade and a good long run. And I think the party has had these debates and these moments and these freakouts and then the stabilizing. But Harris is leading to now handing off as a running mate, someone who we just saw gave that speech. This is America's dad, America's football coach, America's...
She called him Coach Walz.
Yeah, Coach, America's teacher. Yeah. And the teacher that's cool enough without trying to be cool. But then when people are, and I was reading about this today and it came up on the stage, when people are singling out other classmates because of their identity or who they are, this is the person who comes in and leads. That's actually really cool in a deeper way. And you get this impression from him. There'll be time to assess all this and have debates and have, the investigative journalism. But this is someone who accorded himself tremendously well. And that Gatorade and that run and that kind of healthy, uplifting vibe, boy, does the party need it. But also, as they made the argument, so does America need it. And then his record, liberal without being strident, strong without being overly bombastic. Kind in the traditional sense of the word. And this is, I don't really do dog whistles, so I swear this is not a dog whistle. But you got a reminder of why this isn't just a purely coastal, big state, blue state ticket. Yes, he's from a blue state, but we already talked about the district he's from and the way he represents, which had a heartland thing going on. And heartland isn't necessarily left or right, doesn't need to be. So you were reminded why, again, Kamala Harris's first big decision, she's saying to the nation, whatever you heard about me, I know how to get things done. I know how to lead. I'm bringing on someone from another part of the country, from another set of backgrounds. That doesn't mean compromising on your core beliefs either.
Yeah. I also think that you learn politics in the rooms you're in. When comedians talk about the room, right? Like, you're given jokes and the people are in that room and you do it over and over and you find out what hits and what doesn't. We've seen Donald Trump do that with his crowd. Like that is a collaboration between Donald Trump and the MAGA faithful.
That's how he learns what his policies are.
That's how he learns what they are. And this is a guy whose room has been working as a teacher in a rural school district, and then in a conservative rural congressional district, and then in the state of Minnesota at a statewide level. And again, a state that is a blue state, but can be a battleground state. Donald Trump came very close to yoinking it away in 2016. And I just feel like what you get from him, and I think Josh Shapiro does as well, and I think the foundational text of this approach is Barack Obama's 2004 convention speech, is just like patriotic pluralism, like a vision of an inclusive society, of the
I want to pivot over now to see Josh Shapiro's speech, right, and just get a glimpse of how what he said at this rally. Let's see here. They were in the middle of explaining some of the differences, saying that the difference in how people might take a Shapiro vice presidency versus the strengths of Walz, right? And so let's just get a glimpse at what that sounds like when we observe Shapiro. Well, I tell you right off of the bat, one of the things that came to mind is the name. I think no matter what, one of the Republican attack lines is, the theories about people's backgrounds and anti-Semitism regarding Jews. They don't often see it as anti-Semitism themselves, but, uh, in the realm of democracy, right? Democracies, right? And actual discrimination, racism historically in these democracies, we know anti-Semitism is real, just like Islamophobia is very real. And there's been history with Islam and Christianity where they've had clashes and where different boundaries and borders have overlapped and things like that. And it's resulted in issues. They have history together, So, a lot of times those things still exist. They don't get resolved overnight. It takes time and we have laws on discrimination where we acknowledge these histories still have impact on everyday society, how we live life today. So I could see right off of the bat, my first thought is that they would call him a Jew and then therefore disregard him, like try to put him out, spookism, the Jew and all of these things. So they can't do that with Walz again. That's another thing. But now I want to hear the substance. Forget that he's Jewish, forget his ethnic background, forget that he's a white dude, a white guy, forget all of that. And let's just listen to the substance here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, and for the record, I don't even know if he is Jewish. I'm just talking about his name. Let me just, be clear about that.
Thank you. I love you, Philly. And you know what else I love? I love being your governor. Thank you very much. Y'all fill my heart. And I love you so much. And I want you to know, every single day I go to work for you. I put my shoulder to the wheel and I focus on 3 simple letters in our alphabet. G, S, D. I focus on getting shit done for all of you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I want you to know, I am going to continue to pour my heart and soul into serving you every
single day as your governor. And I'm going to be working my tail off to make sure we make Kamala Harris and Tim Walz the next leaders of the United States of America. That's right. Let me tell you about my friend Kamala Harris, someone I've been friends with for 2 decades. She is courtroom tough. She has a big heart. And she is battle tested and ready to go. Whether in a courtroom, whether fighting as Attorney General, whether remembering the people who have oftentimes been left behind when she was sitting in the halls of power in the Senate, Kamala Harris has always understood that you got to be every day for the people, for the people. And she has served with honesty. She has served with dignity. And every step of the way, she's broken barriers to serve all of us. Now, Billy, hear me on this. That's a hell of a stark contrast from the guy running on the other side. Oh, y'all know who I'm talking about, I guess. You see, we remember here in Philly what it was like when Donald Trump was our president. We remember when he was president, it was more chaos, fewer jobs, and less freedom. You see, Philly, I know y'all, we walk around with a little bit of a chip on our shoulder because we remember, right? And we remember that it was Donald Trump that ripped away the freedom of millions of American women to make decisions over their own bodies. We remember that. We remember that. We're not going back. We are not going back. You're right. Not going back. And here's the thing. We don't want to go back, but let's go back for a second. Just remember. Let's just remember, because I think there's some folks out there that still have a little bit of brain fog, having a hard time remembering what it was like. Now listen, he brought all that chaos and limited our freedoms back when he was president, and let's be honest, didn't know what the hell he was doing. He didn't. But this is serious, gang. He knows what he's doing now. He does. And the Supreme Court that he packed, the Supreme Court that he has packed, has ruled that he is above the law. He is outside of the law. And now he's got a clear plan. They all wrote it down in that whole Project 2025 thing. And they got a clear plan to take away more of our freedoms. They got a clear plan to use the Justice Department to go against our enemies. They got a clear plan to isolate us in the world. And let me tell you something, I ain't going back. I am not going back. I'm not. And neither do you want to go back. We are not going back. We're not going back. No. We're not. And not only are we not going back, we're not going into the future with Donald Trump, not going in the future with him. A guy who has made clear, he's told us what he wants to do, more chaos, less freedom. And yo, friends, it was Maya Angelou who said it, when they tell you who they are, yeah, I believe them, and I don't want to see that. And Donald Trump, well, he's now got a partner with him. Y'all see that guy? Yeah. J.D. Vance, he's not exactly off to a good start. I think we can all agree on that. But I think part of the reason why he's not off to a good start is this, and it's serious. He doesn't know who he is. And he's not being honest with himself, so he can't be honest with the American people. He can't. Now, so if I hear you right, and I think I do, you're chanting, he's a weirdo. Which means, man, I love you, Philly. Which means, if you're chanting, he's a weirdo, then you heard of my good friend and our next vice president, Tim Walz. Because Tim Walz, in his beautiful Midwestern plain-spoken way, he summed up J.D. Vance the best. He's a weirdo. And I want to talk about Tim Walz, because Philly, in a minute, he's going to come out here, and I want you to give him a whole lot of love. Tim Walz is a great man. Tim Walz is an outstanding governor. Tim Walz is a teacher. Tim Walz is a guardsman. Tim Walz is a great patriot. He is.
Okay, he's going to speak about Tim Walz, and that's what I wanted to hear. That's why we pivoted here from the other commentary. But we're going to go back to that soon. Now that he's about to describe Tim Walz, because that's what we came for. But
and I'll tell you what else.
It's good to get a taste of the guy who didn't become the pick, and especially when you think about the fact that the conversations that have already taken place in media is that there will be an impact. Maybe some people say, he should have, we just heard, who was it? We were just playing something back. I forget the guy's name, but in any case, we're going to go back to him. But he said he wanted Shapiro. That's what he thought the best pick was because of the electoral points. And because I think Pennsylvania is a toss-up state too, both of those things. But the others think a little different, and so think that it's not all about Pennsylvania, that the numbers will improve. So, all right, let's hear a little bit more.
I'll tell you what else. Tim Walz is a dear friend. And I want you to know, Lori and I feel blessed to have Tim and Gwen in our lives. They are outstanding public servants. And I can't wait for you, Philly, the rest of this Commonwealth, and our entire country to get the chance to know the Walzes, the next vice president and second lady of this nation. Now, I think it is fitting, and it is special, that Kamala Harris and Tim Walz have chosen to launch their campaign right here in Philadelphia, in the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. And importantly, they chose to launch their campaign right here in the birthplace of real freedom.
And that's a historical reference there. Even I believe the capital of the US was there at first, right? Originally. Then it moved to Washington, DC. But yeah, let's get more into it.
The other side, Trump and his sycophants, let me tell you something. They love to talk a good game about freedom, right? They love to cloak themselves in the blanket of freedom all the time. They love to talk a good game. But hear me on this. It's not freedom to tell our children what books they're allowed to read. That's not freedom. It's not. It's not. It's not freedom to say you can go to work, but you can't join a union. That's not freedom. It's not freedom to tell women what they're allowed to do with their bodies. That's not freedom. It's not. It's not. It is not. No, it's not. It is not. And it won't be that way when Kamala Harris is our president. And it sure as hell isn't freedom to say you can go vote, but he's going to pick the winner. That is not freedom. That's not what patriots have fought for over the years. It is not. You know what we are for? You know what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are for? They are for real freedom. They are. The kind of real freedom that comes when we look that young girl in North Philly in the eye and we invest in her public school because we believe in her. We believe in real freedom, the kind of freedom that comes when we invest in our police and we invest in our communities because we believe that young girl should walk to and from school safely and back to her mama at the end of the night.
Shapiro is on fire right now, actually.
We believe in real freedom where the young girl can grow up and be whatever she wants. She can be a welder. She can go to college. She can be who she is. That is real freedom, and that is what we are fighting for. We believe in the kind of real freedom where she grows up in a community where she can breathe clean air and drink clean water and know that she will leave an environment to the next generation that is great for her kids and her grandkids. And Kamala Harris and Tim Walz believe in a real freedom where you can marry who you love and be who you are.
Hey, now, as a reference to that, right? Of course, people are probably thinking about that applies to sexuality or and this kind of thing with marriage and this the rights of, I guess, LGBT, right? Some people would think of it that way, but when I think about it historically, I think we need to keep history and the country we're talking about on a historic level and regarding law. At one time, you could not just be a Muslim. At one time, you could not just be a Jew publicly. You got to understand that. Like there's different aspects to this marriage thing. So when you think about denying someone else the right to be married, think about how many times in the history of the same country where someone else was denied that same right to be married for a different reason that was unjust. So we have to be real. In my view, that's the context of this. Why should you care about somebody else when you have the right to your freedom of choice yourself? That's how I look at the matter. So I like what Shapiro was saying, by the way. He's on fire. I didn't even intend on listening to all of this, but he's on fire. So let's hear a little more.
Now, freedom. Freedom is on the ballot. And our fundamental freedoms are at risk. And I know when it's at risk, it's easy to feel uneasy. and it's easy to get down. But let me tell you something, Philly. Let me tell you something, Pennsylvania. Let me tell you something, America. I am more optimistic than ever before. And the reason I'm more optimistic than ever before is because of all of you. And because of what a band of patriots started here in our taverns, in our town squares, and at Independence Hall just a couple miles from here nearly 2.5 centuries ago. You see, they came together. They came together to declare our independence from a king, and we're not going back to a king. And
that is another difference right there. I mean, how people bridge that conversation with the voters, right? And again, it goes back to history. You know, to think about the laws today, it affects you. It affects you when you don't have a good understanding of American history and United States of America history, because then you don't have any perspective to go on when you're viewing how you use these laws. So in relation, like I was saying, to people worried about LGBT being married, right? In relationship to that, and today, that context and that conversation people are having today, I made a reference to how was it before in history when others were denied the right to be married for different reasons, right? I kind of bridged those two things, but now he's going into another aspect of that. So
we're not going back. See,
he's talking about the time where the laws were different and there was a king. You see, that kind of thinking, having a king, having one person with more power than another person, that's making a person a king. And when they have that power, if you're an American, if you're a United States citizen, you should know very well that that is why your country was created in the first place, to get rid of the king, get the king off your back, taxing you unfairly, you know. And it's important to understand that, you know, one man is the king. See, it's not a difference. It's one thing to have government giving you services that you pay taxes for. That's called managing your money. That's called civil rights, human and civil rights, you know. But it's another thing. Yeah. It's another thing to, you know, I just think Republicans often confuse it, what their rights are, you know, and it sounds on one level easy, you know, you could understand it in a certain way, but when you compare it to the real history and reality of the country, then it ends up not making sense for them often. They will say 1776, but can't tell you what it was all about. You see what I'm saying? It's crazy.
they came together. They came together to declare our independence from a king, and we're not going back to a king.
If they knew better, then they wouldn't try to make Donald Trump a king. We've already been through the damage of that and what that produces, you know, and that this is just, yeah, it's a good point.
We're not going back. And when they declared that independence from a king, they came together and they said, we are going to form a union. And over the last 248 years, the reason why I'm optimistic, the reason why I'm hopeful, is because as we've written this American story over the last 2.5 centuries, it's been ordinary Americans taking up the baton from those patriots and saying, we're going to do extraordinary things. Octavius Catto understood that responsibility. Cecil B. Moore understood that responsibility. Gen Z, when they're organized and on TikTok, understand that responsibility. And I'm optimistic today because the task of perfecting our union, the task of defending our fundamental freedoms, it now falls to all of you. To freedom-loving Americans all across this great country, and to the good people of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania who will decide this next election and understand our unique responsibility.
You know what?
I love you.
Shapiro is. I really like what he's saying, and I understand why people would like him because judging from this speech right here, this guy is very, very American because he can cite American history and understand the political context today that it has. You see that it still has some context today. That's the roots of the country. That's the history of the country. And if you don't have a good hold on the history of the country, the laws, I'm talking about more than just a superficial understanding. If you don't have an in-depth understanding of it, then it could distort how you view politics today, really. And I think it does. So I like what he's saying because he's trying to get people that really do understand what that country is about, its foundings, the different principles, the different wars that were fought for people's rights, and the reasoning behind it is really wars about rights. Essentially at the end of the day, once you understand that, then you understand how important the civil rights should be. Because in the old days, at one point they needed everybody. Do you think the Northerners cared, the Union cared about so many little details about your background when it came time to have a gun in your hand and protect yourself and, get rid of the other army? They didn't think about all of that stuff. All that other criteria they weren't thinking about. They were like, are you for this basic set of principles or not? And that's what they took. There wasn't even a question about who was LGBT. They don't even ask those kind of questions. They didn't go that far. It's a little different. They had some basic priorities they were fighting over. And today, I think as Americans, we even forget that. We forget it, I like Shapiro. I like where he's going with it. And just, I can hear that in him.
Where we all have to understand that while we'll see Kamala Harris and Tim Walz's names on the ballot, that this election isn't just about their names on this ballot. This election is about all of you. And whether or not you're willing to do this hard work to fight for our freedom, whether or not you're willing to do this hard work that started here 248 years ago. I want to just say this. I lean on my family and I lean on my faith, which calls me to serve. And I am proud of my faith. Now hear me. I'm not here to preach at y'all, but I want to tell you what my faith teaches me.
Well, I could tell you, regardless of his faith, he definitely has a hold of American history. He's got a real hold of, this government, this country, what the laws are for, how they work, how they intergovernment intersects with society, everyday people. He understands that vehicle, those tools and what they're there for, civil rights, essentially. That's what it all comes down to. Having roads should be a civil right, even just roads, transportation, all of this stuff. At some point, we do need government to always step in and do the big parts of it, make sure that the big parts get handled. And then others, the states can fight over how they want to implement some smaller aspects of it, if they need that kind of support. But we know you need that support. But in any case, I like Shapiro, and I'm going to let this finish out and go from there. Let's see.
My faith teaches me that no one is required to complete the task, but neither are we free to refrain from it. That means that each of us has a responsibility to get off the sidelines, to get in the game, and to do our part. Are you ready to do your part? Are you ready to form a more perfect union? Are you ready to build an America where no matter what you look like, where you come from, who you love or who you pray to, that this will be a place for you? And are you ready to look the next President of the United States in the eye and say, hello, Madam President? I am too, so let's get to work.
Wow. Yes, that was a very good speech. That was a very good speech. Oh, wow. That is so. I didn't, I haven't heard, I've heard little clips of him, of Governor Shapiro's, you know, public statements or, his engagements. And it's, but this is the first time where I listened to a complete one. And so, I like, and I can understand why people would want him to be the VP pick. I understand that now completely. Yeah. So let's go back to the commentary from the media sources, the major media sources. Let's see here.
Creed, where we stand up to bullies and we look out for people and we're all bound together and we mind our own damn business. And that's a way of talking about a certain set of what to me are genuine liberal and progressive policies in an open-hearted and inviting way that is not wrapped up in, hard to understand jargon.
Yeah.
And I think he just does it real damn well. Yeah. And they saw that on display.
Nicole?
So in 2008, working for the McCain campaign, you watch the Obama campaign, and there's just something cellular about momentum and winningness.
Yes.
And they have this cellular winningness going on. And you brought up the whiskey, and I think that we were all together 5.5 weeks ago covering the debate. And there was a moment, you were the first to come on the air and talk about what we actually saw, and we were unflinching, and it was brutal. I think we should be as unsparing with what we're seeing here. It is the vibe of winning. It is momentum, pure and simple. Vice President Kamala Harris isn't flawless. I don't think she would say she's flawless. She is running a flawless campaign. Yeah. She has not made one single mistake. And I think Democrats like to say, but she will. She might not.
It's a sprint now.
Republicans have nominated Trump 3 times. I mean, she is running a flawless campaign. And this choice, even 8 hours ago, I think wasn't as obvious as it is now. He made a couch joke, for Pete's sake. Yeah. I mean, yes.
Yeah, some media sources, especially Fox, right? They're kind of reporting on the choice of VP, saying that because it wasn't Shapiro and it was Walz, that was some sort of stumble. Like, look at that. Oh, things are going bad. And you know how the conspiracy theories are going to start. Then it's going to be like, yeah, they're having infighting. And yeah, all types of stuff. That's what's been going on so far for the last year. And, there's going to be more to it. But let's go. I think the more people get to know Walz, the better. The easier it will be for them to understand why she chose him, how he relates to people. But I think myself, I'm from DC. Philadelphia is not far from DC. So the way he's talking, Shapiro, I understand him well. Culturally, we're within the same, kind of space.
All the cultural sort of universality of his appeal, but he also is unafraid. They are unapologetic in their sort of policies and morals and the things that they fight for, but they're totally approachable. You get the feeling that he's got plenty of neighbors that wear MAGA hats, and he picks up their paper and brings it to their front door, and they're his friends. Yeah. And I think there's been a thirst and a hunger for that. And I think that She, had another. You're winning also is about stringing together one good news cycle after one good news cycle after one good news cycle. And she has done that every single day, including today.
Absolutely. The line that I wrote down from Mr. Governor Coach Walz, I guess we're going to have to now call him, thank you for bringing back the joy.
Yeah, that was his opening line.
Right? And I think that's part of what it is. I've gotten so many text messages from people who have been locked in this just cycle of terror and fear about what's to come, right? This fear of fascism that's legitimate because Donald Trump really does want to bring back fascism.
Well, you said you wouldn't talk about our private discussions on TV.
The whiskey? Maybe they were for myself. Maybe I have to say
that is private, Joy. Jesus. I'm sorry.
I can't with you. I can't.
I'm sorry.
But I mean, the reality is, I think a lot of people have forgotten how fun campaigns can be. I mean, I actually enjoyed working on campaigns back in the day because there was something about it that was sort of the civic mindedness of it, the kind of camaraderie of it. And there's a certain aspect of it that's fun, even though the stakes are big. And I think that with Donald Trump, he's got this kind of stale act that isn't new. It isn't fresh.
Yeah.
He's doing the same shtick that he did in 2016 and 2020.
Yeah. You know what? I second her thoughts on that. That's exactly what's going to take over in people's mind. Donald Trump is not coming with anything new. It's the same old scam from the last time, and people can see through it. And so even though the stakes are high, Democrats are celebrating this. They're like, no, that it's time to step up. It's time to fight, and it's time to save the country, essentially. They seem very confident, and let's do something. Even if you're not Democrat, even if you're from one of the other smaller parties, right? What's your choice going to be? Can your choice really be Trump anyway?
Boring, but it's wrapped up in the things he wants to do to us. They want to drag us back to the 1950s. They want women to all get married and have babies, and they want to have 10-year-olds have kids. He wants 10-year-olds to have lunch. It's just a simple Midwestern values thing that Barack Obama did in his campaign. You can say that he's this sort of exotic figure, thing as Barack Hussein Obama. Trump is, again, using his whole middle name. But you know what he is? He's like a normal guy that you would play basketball with. And so is this guy. And I think that is a powerful thing that people forget that it works. And it worked for Joe Biden. It's one of the ways that Biden defeated Trump is he said, I'm just going to bring back normal. I'm not going to do all these wild things. I don't poo in a gold toilet like this guy. This guy's like a weird guy. He's odd. J.D. Vance is even weirder. And this is like comfortable, normal, and joyful. That is a powerful thing in campaigns.
I will say, that if you look at for Americans discovering that there's a person named Tim Walz today, which is a huge proportion.
Just to be clear.
Yes. And a huge proportion even of Democrats, right? But they're learning that this is a guy who is a straight white guy from the Midwest who talks like he's from Minnesota because he's from Minnesota. He grew up on a farm. His dad was in the Army. He did 24 years in the Army National Guard. He was a command sergeant major, which is a big freaking deal. He was a high school social studies teacher. His wife was the English teacher. He was the football coach. He ran in a conservative district, was seen as a centrist, had an A rating from the NRA, and was the champion congressional sharpshooter. And when Parkland happened, when the Parkland shooting happened, and his daughter was 17 years old, and he is a lifelong gun owner and hunter, and he's A-rated from the NRA, he decides that he needs to evolve on that issue. And he, as most gun owners do, decides that he's going to support background checks, he's going to support red flag laws and other common sense gun safety laws. And what does he do when he was running for governor that year, when all that is happening? He makes that change. And then he turns around and he donates to charity every dollar the NRA had ever donated to him over the course of his career when he was an A-rated NRA Democratic moderate from a rural red-leaning district.
And he gets an F. And
now he has an F, and he wears it as a badge of honor.
I think that's part of what the Harris campaign is sort of saying. What she's saying with this is America, and it's inviting. We talked about the Zoom calls, which can be different constituency groups, but the white guy Zoom call, it's half a joke.
That's white dudes.
White dudes, thank you. Yes, the dude abides. it's half a joke, but it's also very real in that you're bringing these people together. And so Democrats spent many years on defense on so-called conservative issues, including national security or safety. You just talked about what does gun safety look like, or wearing a darn flag pin. And I'm all for celebrating America any way you choose. But all of the right-wing flag pin theater is very different from what Harris is saying today, which is this is also America, but it has certain values. And he said you can have compromise orientation without compromising your values. And so that's a different sort of invitation. And it's different than it being right-wing performative. And now you have the so-called MAGA folks on defense about, well, what's the real America they represent?
They're debating who's weirder. Like, if you're debating whether you're weirder or they're weirder, like, you're already losing. He is what J.D. Vance pretends to be. And that's the problem.
The other thing is, I think because the country is not particularly divided on abortion, 76% of Americans thought Roe was properly decided, not divided on gun safety. 85% wants gun safety legislation, including majority gun owners. What all the Republicans have had for the last 10 years is cultural division. He erases it all in 40-minute speech. Go on.
I just think this, watching the Democratic Party work through itself in the last 3 weeks or so, and it's just, again, I keep coming back to this notion of pluralism because it's like a weird dated word that no one uses anymore, but I think it's really beautiful and kind of the central core of this whole thing, which is when you talk about there's different constituencies, there's different, democracy is about attaching across all these lines of difference. We're trying to build a multiracial democracy. We've really only been one since the Voting Rights Act. It's super hard to do. They fall apart left and right. And here you've got this moment on stage with she's got these parents who are both immigrants from different traditions. She grows up in Oakland. He's from this totally different part of America and this totally different upbringing. And there they are on stage, stitching together this coalition that is the pro-democracy coalition, which is embodied in the Democratic Party, which got all different kinds of lines of difference. It's got to hold together with people that disagree and are coming from different places. And
it's a big platform. The Democratic Party, they have a big mandate, when everyday people from all over, from different backgrounds, different demographics come together under the Democratic Party. So basically this choice guarantees everyday people are going to be coming out to vote. That's basically what it equals. A lot of everyday people, middle class people, are going to be coming out to vote of different backgrounds. You see different age groups and different backgrounds. That's essentially what it means. So let me pivot back over. I wanted to hear some of the, what was it? Is it Fox? Hold on, let me see.
Great new report.
Oh, this is CNN. Yeah, hold on. Is this the right one? That's CNN. Let's peep that.
Reporting about the process, the vetting process that Tim Walz went through and the conversation.
Oh, wait, this is the same one. Hold on. Is it this one? No, that's Shapiro. What the heck? Sorry about that, y'all. Here we go. Okay, I put the wrong one up. Let me just forward it here a little bit. Then, because they have some commentary where, here we go. There's some comments that are
do it because the party is
contrary.
Up choosing down to the radical left in her party by not picking. I look at this through the lens of decision making.
Here we go.
In 2 cases, they've showed us who they are. Kamala Harris absolutely bowed down to the radical left in her party by not picking Shapiro, who is Jewish. There was a nasty campaign run against him. Everybody knows it. No one wants to admit it, but everybody knows it. And she wound up choosing the person who was not Jewish and not as talented and not from the state that she has to win. He did a nice job tonight. Everybody could see why he was the best choice, but she couldn't do it because the party is somewhat awash in anti-Semitism. And for Walz,
you see that? That's exactly what I mean. I told you they're going to try to portray this in some other way. It's so crazy. Even though this is CNN, this is a guy speaking up, who supports MAGA. He's following the talking points, So they're going to spread this talking point like there's some division, some discrimination in the Democratic Party. They didn't pick him because he was a Jew. No, We know MAGA wouldn't like him if we picked a Jewish person, but that's not why the guy didn't get picked. It's you got two good candidates, possibilities, and it's just about some small nuances. It's not about either one of them being bad, but the right wing, MAGA, they're going to make it like Democratic Civil War, mutiny.
Did what he did during the riots. To me, it was him saying, I don't have the strength or the character to stand up to this anarchy. So in two big decision points for this ticket, they've showed us they will always bow down to the radical left. So I think if you want to talk about normal, to the normal people in this country, bowing down to the radical left is not normal. It shouldn't be normal, and it should be a flashing red light to the normies of America that this is not the ticket for you.
One of the big issues in this election is a woman's right to choose. And guess what? Kamala Harris got a choice to make, and she got to make the choice who was going to be her running mate and who she was going to go into the next 90 days in, and maybe the next 4 years, and maybe the next 8 years. You don't get to tell her who she has to run with. She gets to choose that. That's what leaders do. There's no way you can say Tim Walz is radical because he wants to feed kids. He doesn't want kids. About who's more radical. It was radical sending troops out to. He doesn't want kids to go home. Who gets hungry is white kids, black kids.
Flashing red light to the normies of America that this is not the ticket for you.
One of the big issues in this election is a woman's right to choose. And guess what? Kamala Harris got a choice to make, and she got to make the choice who was going to be her running mate and who she was going to go into the next 90 days in, and maybe the next 4 years, and maybe the next 8 years. You don't get to tell her who she has to run with. She gets to choose that. That's what leaders do. There's no way you can say Tim Walz is radical because he wants to feed kids. He doesn't want kids to go home. Who gets hungry is white kids, black kids, brown kids, poor kids get hungry. That doesn't discriminate. That's that's Tim Walz's policy. That's not a radical left.
I said it was radical
also,
to let Minneapolis burn. Do you agree?
Yeah. No, but let's go back to 2020. If you want to have a contest about who's more radical, it was radical sending troops out to clear protesters out in front of the White House so Donald Trump could have a photo op. You want to know what's radical? Not telling people on January 6th to stop, that you lost the election, and that Trump, his own vice president, Mike Pence, who won't come in a football field length of him right now. That's radical. That's who your guy is. I'll take Tim Walz any day.
There should have been troops on the streets of Minneapolis immediately. It was burning to the ground.
Let me just say one thing before you come in, and that is because you brought up Josh Shapiro.
Yeah.
We have been talking about the fact that there was a campaign against him.
Ugly.
That was clearly, I want to say, because based on the fact that he was Jewish, he doesn't have any different policy ideas than the other people. However, I don't think we have any evidence that that is why she didn't pick him. In fact, if you watched him tonight, and I want to stay on the people who are on the ticket, but if you watched him tonight, he has top of the ticket energy.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Not VP energy.
Yeah,
and there's no way in my, there's no way that wasn't part of it.
I know Jamie has some good reporting on this, and I have some visibility into this.
Yes.
I think that there was a real, I don't think he was excluded for that reason. I'm not sure he was excluded at all. I think there was a mutual meeting of the minds as to whether this was the right fit for him with her. I appreciate, as the only, oh, no, you're here. But just let me, oh, yes, all of us. But I appreciate your, I'm, anti-Semitism is something that a lot of us have faced in different ways, and my family has faced, and so on. I don't like to see it exploited here. One of the things that separated this rally from a Trump rally is it felt very wholesome. It felt very positive. It wasn't just a series of sort of appeals to hate and division and grievance. And so I think, I understand the talking point. I'm sure we'll hear more of it.
Can I just, Scott, give me 1 second. Scott, one moment. Take a beat. I think it's important to add to that 2 things that we have from our reporting. One is that even going into this selection, Josh Shapiro had some, let's just say, hesitancy or questions about whether he wanted to be the number two.
Yep.
You may remember that 3 weeks ago, there were a lot of people who were not sure that Kamala Harris was going to be the most exciting ticket. It feels very different now. And he is someone who definitely has ambitions to run, and he was looking at down the road. And we have new reporting tonight from our team.
Look, you see the line that they're going down, but let me let her finish this thought and then.
That in fact, when he went into his vetting meeting and also in his in-person meeting with Harris, he made it very clear what kind of vice president he wanted this to be. It was much more of a two for the price of one. He wants to be in the room. He wanted to have a real say in these things.
You can already tell this is hogwash. Like, for example, isn't that something all vice president people that are picked being vetted for that would want for themselves? Wouldn't all vice presidents want to be in the room, want to do this? So what is she talking about? She's talking about it like that's such a strange thing that somehow that changes what's going on. A vice president should think that way, and I'm sure Walz also thought that way. But at the end of the day, Kamala Harris is thinking the same thing too. She wants, it's her presidency. So she's going to have to make the tough decisions and the decisions ultimately. So that's just the difference. But overall, I don't understand the commentary here that she's giving, because it just seems like it's always a conspiracy. Like there's a problem. There's something, sort of doubt in the Democratic Party, when in fact, the Democratic Party is a well-oiled machine. Now, let me give you my breakdown of it. I think that what went on is something else, some details that this lady obviously didn't get. Number one, is there an age difference between the two? Let me see something here. I just want to make sure I got this. Let me see. What is the age difference between Tim Walz and Josh Shapiro? Let me see here. Okay, there's 9 years difference between them two. And okay, so I think when you're talking about the level of service, how long you've been serving your community, active, and I'm not putting one against the other. I'm just saying there's an age difference there of a decade. So if you're dealing with two people that are very active, that begin to be very active, even at the same age in life, right? If they're both equal, obviously one has 10 more years experience on being equal, and I think that's what it ultimately came down to, if you ask me. And Josh Shapiro, in 8 years from now, could very well much be the next president, or Walz could be. You never know. But one thing about it is that either one of them could be, because they're strong people. But if you want to know how I think they chose, I think they understand that Walz, he has 10 more years up there experience. That's all. You see what I mean? And it's impeccable. And so you kind of got to give him that. But I think Republicans and Maga, they tend to look for tropes in things like, this guy's Jewish. They're always putting tropes out on every decision where they miss the details, just the core concrete details of it. And I think that's where they always fail, and Democrats don't tend to do that anymore. They tend to be very, very in touch with the population, knowledgeable, in terms of the real core data and the real sense on the ground. They're very organized on the ground. They don't just go by what the numbers say that were collected one day. They also go and do their own research, on the ground with people and get a sense of the communities. And they definitely have a strong sense of their community, the Democratic Party. They show that it's a strong party. It wouldn't even matter what their policies were. If you just take away all their policies, you're dealing with a well working machine, an organized machine. The Republican Party is not that party at all. You see, so I think Democrats think very rationally and logical, and they don't go for tropes. So, in any case, I'm gonna let this lady finish her view and then play a little bit more.
There are sources we've talked to who feel that in those meetings, Shapiro sort of set the stage not to be picked.
Jamie, you have some great new reporting about.
Oh, no, you
into this selection, Josh Shapiro had some, let's just say, hesitancy or questions about whether he wanted to be the number 2.
Yep.
You may remember that 3 weeks ago, there were a lot of people who were not sure that Kamala Harris was going to be the most exciting ticket. It feels very different now. And he is someone who definitely has ambitions to run, and he was looking at down the road. And we have new reporting tonight from our team that, in fact, when
You see what I mean? Like the Democratic Party is, as a whole, is not, their leadership is not thinking down the road. See, it's an insult to think that, because the way that they're organized is through seniority. Seniority is part of that. It's your skill, but also seniority also tells a lot about your experience. Seniority meaning 10 years difference between Walz in experience and Shapiro. You see? So, but they're going to use this trope, like conspiracy trope, or try to make what's regular and average. Like Walz wasn't thinking he wants to be the president one day too. They all do. But the issue is that they have a system, how they operate. And I think that's just why they chose Walz, because he's got 10 more years experience. But they're both great vice presidents. And one day, maybe either one of them would be too. But I don't, this a line of thinking that she's going down is strange
and
to
he
me.
went into his vetting meeting and also in his in-person meeting
It's conspiratorial
with Harris, he made it very clear what kind of vice president he wanted this to be. It was much more of a 2 for the price of 1. He wants to be in the room. He wanted to have a real say in these things. There are sources we've talked to who feel that in those meetings, Shapiro sort of set the stage not to be picked.
Yeah, that was interesting. Pumpkin, you still there? Okay, maybe Pumpkin's out for a minute. But yeah, it appears that CNN, there you go, is leaning right. And but they had both sides in a way, I think. They had both sides. But and I don't fault them for having both sides, but I'm just saying the side that she's representing in my mind is conspiratorial. And again, this is a MAGA thing. They go after tropes. The first thing they went after is, and we said this, I already said this even before I heard them do it, even before I saw it exhibited. I already knew that they were going to make something out of that Shapiro, him being Jewish, would be an issue. But what they do to cover that up is they say, in reality, we know being Jewish is MAGA. They're totally against that. They're anti-Semitic. You know that. But what they do to mask it is try to, now they're going to try to say that there's some other reason why he didn't pick MAGA. The other gentleman said that there's a reason, his background being Jewish. He started with the conspiracy thing about, oh yeah, it's because he's Jewish that Kamala didn't pick him. And, that's crazy. That's the craziest thing. And now she follows up with, "Oh, this Shapiro went in there thinking about himself and his aspirations for the future, being president and blah blah blah." Yo, lady, Democratic Party already got that set up, because here's the thing: when you're dealing with the age difference and the experience difference with this stuff, Walz has 10 years more experience than Shapiro. So take away the trope of him being Jewish. Just remove that and take away the trope of Kamala being Indian or black. Which one is she? Is she confused? That's too confusing for me. Take that away. Take away even the fact that she's a woman, and then look at their experience on record. Sure, Kamala probably, I'm guessing that she's in experience is close to Shapiro, more than Shapiro, the record, I think. But age, they're closer in age, I believe. Let me just check on that. But I'm gonna double check that when I'm done with my thought here. But I think it's just more rational how the Democratic Party do. They have a ranking system themselves, how they rank each other anyway. So this conspiracy stuff, it's just, the more you know about politics, the more you laugh at this stuff. Yo, Pumpkin, you there? Pumpkin. Oh, her mic's not working. All right, but let me go on. You know what? I'm gonna drop the link one more time, and then I think I'm gonna be out. Pumpkin, you want to say anything? Okay. I think you should hop back in, Pumpkin. All right. Now let me see here. There we go. Now, Pumpkin, she's going to hop back up. But let me know your thoughts. Let me know how you see this breakdown in the commentary, and what your feelings are about these opposing views, the Democratic view, in terms of this, what you saw here, what we played today. Let me know what you think the Democratic Party's position is in the choice in the VP. And also let me know what you think about the major media's commentary on it from the left and the right. And then, of course, anything else you're welcome to do. I appreciate everybody. I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and I'm out. Pumpkin, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you. Go ahead.
We're having a storm, part of the hurricane. The wind is coming through, so that's what's going on. Yeah.
All right, but let me know, what were your thoughts?
What about what?
What we were just hearing. What we were just hearing. Yeah.
Oh, you mean with what that lady said?
Yeah, the commentary. Exactly.
Yeah, the commentary. Yeah, CNN is leaning right now. It's not the CNN it used to be. So they're going to find fault with everything. I think it is what you said. They're both good. They're both good in what they, I like Shapiro. I wanted it to be Shapiro, but the way you said it, with the experience, 10 years more experience, it makes sense. It makes sense because what they wanted someone that Vance and Trump could.
Well, you know what it is? In that kind of way, with the 10 years experience, it also represents that it helps Kamala Harris too, because I think she in age is closer to Shapiro. Let me just double check that. But go ahead.
Yeah, but I agree with you, because I hadn't thought of it the way you did about the most experience, because they're both good. I mean, I was laughing because when he was talking, my family is all in Philadelphia, and I've been going there since I was a kid. And I used to spend summers in Philadelphia, and I never thought about the Independence Hall and the Liberty Bell. I've never seen it. I've been going to Philadelphia all my life. I've never seen it. He got me making. I wanted to go see it now. I was thinking about it, but yeah, what you saying, it makes sense. 10 years
Yeah, and
more experience.
just to follow up on that, Kamala Harris, the age between her and Shapiro is 8 years. So it's true what I was saying. Like, hold on, age between Kamala Harris and Shapiro is 8 years. Hold on.
He's
Oh,
sick.
wait a second. Kamala Harris is 60 years old. I didn't realize that. Man, she looks great for that age, bro. Like, I mean, sis,
No, she's
really.
not 60.
Now,
She's not
so
60.
I think that's what it comes down to. The experience in the age difference. 10 years, 8 years is a long time. 9 years is a long time. That's a lot of time when you're talking about experience. And so I don't think it's any pun to Shapiro. And I think it is logical that one day he could be the president. But I don't think that's a bad thing. And so when they insinuate that, oh, he's going in the meeting thinking he wants to be president one day. Yeah. And so Waltz does also, because that's politics for you. They all have presidential possibilities in one way or another. So it depends on how things go. But within the Democratic Party, I think that was the thing. It's the ranking system. It's the age difference. That's
Right.
what it comes down to. And I think the experience that comes with it. So, but yeah, go ahead. Anything else you want to say?
No, that's it. Because,
Okay. Hey, Pumpkin, why don't you drop your let me see if I can find your I'm gonna put your channel in the chat too. I gotta find it real quick. All right, but I appreciate you. I
yeah,
appreciate you, Pumpkin.
I got some. No, I got some more stuff I'm gonna send you because I told you got a bigger audience, so it'll get out there. I think it's getting down here to the people. But that girl, Michaela Montgomery, that's the same chick from Chick-fil-A, the one they
Oh,
staged
whoa,
that.
whoa, 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 whoa. Wait a second. I forgot. We gotta find that right now. We gotta find that right now. I forgot. Now wait a second. That's going backwards though. Should we go back?
Yeah, we should. Yeah,
Okay,
on
so
that we should. Cause
what's her
these
name?
black
What's her name?
MichaelaH
What?
something
M
like
I
that.
C what? M I what? Uh-huh.
Michaelaah.
Uh-huh.
Michaela
A
Montgomery. The same girl who with the braids who said who it was the setup at Chick-fil-A. Remember the girl who did the setup with the
All right,
braids and she hugged
I
them?
got it. Should I
That's
play
the
that one? Should I play
yeah,
that?
it's
All right.
short. It's short.
All right, let's
Play
play
it.
it. Let's play it. Let me see
They,
here.
they
2 seconds. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. I forgot about that. Let's see here. I think we can get this going. Um, what is this? Oh, this is a daggone commercial. Okay, 2 seconds. Yeah, but it's been interesting that it's overall they had a good event, a good rally, and oh wow, this stopped. Sorry. They had a good rally, and it's going to be interesting to see how people think about it in a few days. But well, let's go ahead. It's almost ready. Sorry, y'all. Here we go.
Welcome to the stage, founder of Conserve the Culture, Michaela Montgomery.
Is this the one, Pumpkin? Is this the one right here? Is this it? Oh, hold on. Is Pumpkin here? Oh, here, she dropped out. There we go. Yo, is it this one?
yeah, he introduced her.
Is
This
it
is
this
the
one?
one.
It's this one. All right. All right. All right. Here we go.
Sun coming up over New York City. School bus driver in a traffic jam.
I'm so happy you all came out to see me. So, my name is Michaela Montgomery. A lot of you guys know me as the girl from Chick-fil-A, but I am so much more than that. Not only do I serve as the CEO of Conserve the Culture, I am also the state director for Blexit down here in Georgia. I'm a Fulton County coordinator for America First Works, and I'm also launching a podcast on the Patriots Prayer Network. So put some respect on my name.
Who is she talking about when she says that? Who is she talking about? Did someone speak poorly of her?
I don't know. This girl, she I was telling you, go to Politics by Tabitha. There's a she said she went to Clark Atlanta University. Clark Atlanta University. She said something about Donald Trump saved her school, which was Clark University. They got a thing up there where Clark University put out a thing saying that they wanted to stop her to telling the lie. Donald Trump did not save their school.
Oh, really?
And also, they have a mugshot of this girl.
Oh, really? Wow.
Politics by Tabitha.
They have a mugshot of her.
Yeah, hair standing all on her damn head.
Oh, what was she arrested for?
Well, they say driving without a license and some other stuff. They
Okay.
couldn't get it all. She said, go to Politics by Tabitha. She says,
all right, I'll check it out. Okay. Well,
that's the same nut that she's trying to get. She's part of Turning Point USA. I don't get this because Charlie Kirk is a racist. Ben Shapiro is a racist. Candace Owens is she just a something. She just something. She don't know who the hell she want to be. You know, 1 minute she want to be black and 1 minute she ain't. And they still, I guess they blind. They got dirt in their eyes or some kind of shit. I don't know.
What is she when you said sometimes she's black?
No, that's Candace Owens. No, this girl
what do you mean by that? What do you mean by that when you say that?
Who, Candace Owens?
Yeah, you said like sometimes she's black, other times she's not. What do you mean by that?
When Shapiro fired her, she wanted to be black. I'm just trying to uplift black people. Tell them they don't have to be in the Democratic Party because they don't have to be slaves to the Democratic Party. But black people was like, you chose that side, stay the hell on it. That's the thing they got. And this girl is
so that's what she's referencing here, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I get it now. All right.
Turning Point USA and all that other old shit.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. That's exactly what I wanted to know. All right, should we listen to some or what?
You can do it another time if you want to go, because I gotta go too.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna do it another time because no disrespect to her, but I'd rather handle that on its own, right?
Yeah, that's what on its own.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that. All right, Pumpkin. Well, I appreciate you.
All right, I gotta go because I gotta get ready to get up and go to the doctor. All right, good. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, have a good day. All right.
You too.
Okay, you too.
Bye,
Peace.
everybody.